Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Practice Pulse podcast with my wonderful guest and friend, Tiffany Wuebben, who is the CEO and founder of Hygienepreneur. She is a published author and speaker and is dedicated to serving the dental community in a huge way. Tiffany empowers the dental team to practice with an ownership attitude, and this leads to better clinical outcomes, higher case acceptance, and a heck of a lot more productivity for the practice.
Mhm.
So, this solid base starts with mentorship, education, training. And her book, which is amazing, by the way, is called Hygienepreneur, the dental hygienist's guide to achieving career success and personal transformation, outlines 25 key lessons for becoming an ultimate RDH, one who provides the highest level of patient care, contributes significantly to practice revenue, and also gains new insights into mastering their own destiny. With 30 years of experience, Tiffany is vested in practice as well as personal and patient success through the growth and support of a highly profitable hygiene department. And as we all know, hygiene is the key to any dental practice. She has a unique passion for this field of dentistry and, you know what, believes in giving back to the profession, and it is my pleasure to have this time and conversation with Tiffany. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Aditi, thank you so much. I am so excited to be on this podcast with you. Oh my gosh, Practice Pulse Podcast. What a great name. I love it when we can repeat the PPP. It's such a great name. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
very
you.
much. And all the good vibes behind it. It's wonderful. This is so
Oh, thank
exceptional.
you. Thank you so much. You are an amazing individual in all the things that you do and your mission and your passion. I mean, Tiffany, I really have not met anybody who is as passionate about hygiene as you are. And so, really, thank you for bringing that to the dental industry and also to bringing that importance of hygiene and how much um, really honing uh, the good, not only good hygiene skills, but also great interpersonal skills and also learning about the metrics of hygiene, how it can improve outcomes not only for the practice, but for the hygienists themselves. How
Mhm.
great is that? You know, very few people think like that. So it's really amazing that you are approaching the hygienist's job like a business and saying, hey, you're in this business too. You have skin in the game too. Let's see how we can maximize your potential as a
Right.
hygienist and make that career fulfilling and not just a person who comes and cleans teeth.
Right.
That's an amazing way to look at it. So you really become a part of the dental ecosystem where you're
Mhm.
not a fringe player, but a main player. And you show people how to do that. And that is really amazing.
Oh my
So
gosh, I
thank
love that. Thank you so much for highlighting hygiene and really elevating it as being yes, so important. It's the foundation of success for any dental practice. And yes, Aditi, I have two passions, dental hygiene and making dentists successful and teams successful and really showing them that they have it in them and that they're super providers. And there's so many skills that hygienists have that when we nurture and give them the proper guidance and training and just kind of really help them, they can do beautiful things. And so I realized that early on when I was wearing my practice manager hat when I started in dentistry. I can't believe it, 30 years ago. Um, I always loved the hygiene teams we had. And I was like, gosh, they are crushing it. They know what they're doing. They can build relationships in 5 minutes. they can build practices so easily. Like us as practice managers, here we were with this business mindset going, okay, this is how we are going to build this practice through proper operations and making sure we've got systems in place, and hey, memorize this manual and let's utilize this verbiage. But the hygiene team does it with the just social skills and this leadership that they have and the passion that they have for caring for these patients. And they can build practices very organically just through their empathy and how they just love delivering care to the patients, and how they can make a best friend with a new patient in 5 minutes. That's how we gain the lifetime patient. It's through our hygiene teams.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, is that what inspired you to pursue dental hygiene consulting, or how did it start, and how has it shaped your journey so far?
It's crazy. It's crazy that I was so happy in practice management. Like, I started in dentistry in the front, really as a dental assistant, then a little front office person. Then I went to a big group practice where I was just the file girl. I don't want to say just, but that's when we had files. And I remember my first day at work, my arms hurt going up and down the ladder.
Yeah,
And then I went and did hospital dentistry and really serviced people in a different way in that atmosphere. And it was beautiful to take care of these patients that really needed extra support. And I was there to help them along the way with their hospital scheduling, all of the pre-authorizations for their hospital care. And I learned a lot in that position. And then from there, I managed a practice and grew that practice from 0 patients, and then a big office that owned, actually they had 6 practices, 3 specialty and 3 general. They contacted me, one of their leads, and said, hey, would you like to come on over and manage this practice? And then from there, I became the regional manager of 6. And so I feel like that path and learning how to do insurance contracts and billing and treatment plan presentations and managing people and
mhm,
being in leadership roles of elevating people and seeing them become, more professionally involved and personally growing and having that growth mindset, and starting with all of that and then going and becoming a dental hygienist. It was natural for me to take those skills that I had learned along the way into that hygiene operatory and have my own business within a business in that operatory. And so I had been writing systems and operations for years, and then I did it with our hygiene department. And thankfully, the doctor I worked for, in fact, multiple doctors I've worked for, have empowered me to go ahead and take that on and say yes, and have these great conversations together where we could collaborate. And I felt like I was in that partnership role. And so from there, then I naturally went into managing hygiene departments and helping other doctors grow their practices through the power of hygiene. But it started with the one practice that we went from 2 to 9 hygienists, and people saw what we were doing and started reaching out. And then I wrote the book. So, it's just like, I think my progression might be different than others, my journey, because I just kind of let it happen. And I didn't force any doors open. Like, doors just opened for me. And I went, okay, this feels uncomfortable, but guess what? I'm going to go through this door and I'm going to grow. And this is going to be exciting. And so every single time a door opened, I would go through it. I would learn, I would network, I would collaborate with people and try my very best to surround myself with like-minded people. And and then lo and behold, I wrote the book, and then the Hygienepreneur company continued to grow, and now we're just doing so many beautiful things for practices, and I'm just very, very grateful. I just
No,
have so much
you
Yeah,
You know, the
appreciate
biggest and the best thing, I think what you have said in all of this is, it's a journey, right? You just followed the ebbs and flow of how things went, every day was a different day. And you were that person who said yes. And when you said yes, you could make things happen. You changed not only your own path, you changed the path of so many in your way, on your way,
Oh,
right?
oh,
In your journey. You changed the path of that dentist from two hygienists to nine. You showed him what that potential, or her, what that potential was in their office. So, that's what makes you different, Tiffany, is that you said yes. And it takes courage and it takes a lot of grit and it takes a lot of like, even if I fail, I'm okay. I'm gonna try this because without trying, you never know what lies on the other side.
so true.
So thank you
Oh,
really for
thank you.
saying yes,
Oh,
because
oh,
if you hadn't had done that, we wouldn't have you here
oh.
today, 30 years hence, sharing all your wonderful knowledge and experience that you have gained in this amazing industry that we are both part of. So
Thank
thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, you're very welcome. But I really feel like that it was the doctors that I worked for. And I had many, many dentists that elevated me as a team member and wanted me to shine. And they sometimes they saw something in me that I never saw in myself because I was doing that hygiene hustle. And they'd say, you know what? Like the one doctor in particular said, "You're getting bored." And I said, "I am." And I felt like, oh gosh, am I projecting that out there? Because I don't feel like I am. I'm having fun. My patients, we're doing great and schedules are full. I feel fulfilled. I don't feel like I'm bored. And he's like, "Yep, I'm going to send you to another training." And so it was they would see something in me and see if I needed to be fed. And you know what? That's been a great example to me. So when I work with teams and I see team members that are needing things, I am hyper focused on that person because I was so taken care of by some doctors that it was like I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them and them supporting me. And so when I work with teams and I see someone needing something, I am right there to say, okay, how can we really elevate this person? How can we nurture them in all of their beautiful gifts? Because that's what we've got to focus on. And when we do that, then we see staff members grow and shine and the practices do well. The culture is so much more positive. And so that's just like one part of being a consultant, right? Is really managing the people, not just the operations and doing all of that and being an executor and an integrator, but
Mhm,
also really nurturing the people that are within that dental house and making sure at the end of the day that the teams are supported, that everybody is doing what they want to do and like to do, and that they're in the position that they're best built for.
mhm,
And so we analyze all that too. And we do it in a way that's completely authentic and nurturing and supportive. And we've had some folks where I'll go in for a day because I really love boots on the ground. I think it's important for
mhm,
me as a a manager, a trainer, um, to get into the practice and see what they're doing and see how they're living and kind of sit back and see their operations and hear their language, all
mhm,
of those things. And so when I've gone on these hygienists, because I'm a hygienist too, they'll say, "Can I talk to you?" I'm like, "Yes,
mhm,
yes, let's have these conversations. I love this." I can't talk to doctor because he or she is so busy and this and that. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's sit down and figure this out. And so, but it's like those things. So when we sit back and we become active listeners And then we can sit down and collaborate on how to solve problems together as a team. What
Mhm.
happens is it's just, all these beautiful reactions happen, right?
Right.
So I just love it. I mean, I think that I'm absolutely where I'm supposed to be. I
Mhm.
I don't have a doubt in my mind at all. And my first inkling was hospitality, working for the Ritz-Carlton and La Costa Resort and Spa. And but I found a way because I love hospitality, especially hospitality-based care, but I found a way to integrate that into the practice management operations that we really like to train on. And it's because it's all about gaining the lifetime patient. And so through hospitality based care, you can get that. You can have those generations of patients for life. And who better yet to execute that but your hygiene team?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, so if you say, is this your most significant lesson or realization that you have, achieved so far as a hygiene consultant? Is it getting to know the teams and finding and firing the power in each team member? Is
Yes.
that what you would consider the most important? Or more significant, or is there other things?
Well, it's all about those connections, those authentic connections with team members and sitting back and again, elevating their gifts. So I'll have doctors, they're very busy. Doctors are like, poor people are like, you doctors are bottlenecked sometimes. Like all this stuff gets put on you. And then you're like, oh, I got to get to that. I got to get to that. And your desks are, filled with charts and filled with, your models and all these things. And oh, you got to make this call for administrative. And so it's wonderful when we can look at our team members and say, okay, let's focus on the good that they have, their gifts,
Mm-hmm.
and let's not lean on the negative thing. Like we can, because we all have it, right? Not all of us are perfect at everything, but if we can hyper focus on the positives and elevate that and nurture that team member and all their gifts, and then if so there's something that we have to tweak a little bit that person probably didn't even realize,
Right.
and then it's all done very naturally and in a supportive way for sure. And, we find a way to have these really, really crucial conversations with our hygiene team to share what it means to own a dental practice. And hey, let's look outside of this operatory and see what's really helping this business to function.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I love, the fact that you have practice by numbers is because your platform has helped get the hygienist mindset into that entrepreneurial mindset. Like, hey, the metrics equate to care, and let's look at these metrics together very easily. And so, I'm so very thankful that we have our metrics because then at least we'll know what kind of care we're giving to the patients. And it's amazing that hygienists will sit back and go, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize till they see it. And then they see it on a monthly basis. Then they're like, oh, I'm really doing well with that. Oh, my periodontal acceptance rate is 80%. Wow, I'm crushing it. And
Mm-hmm.
but if we don't know that, then we don't know what to train on.
That's true.
So it
That is so
doesn't just
true.
equate to care, it equates to what's your training program going to be. Well, let's analyze the whole thing and
Mm-hmm.
let's see where our strengths are and say, man, we're doing good there. But let's also see where we're lacking so we know where to kind of navigate that training so that way we can flip it quickly and start riding that wave of success for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So well said. Metrics is important, not just like you said, for the dentist, and it doesn't need to be on only their shoulders. It can
Right.
be this is one of the stresses where you can distribute to your strong team members, like your hygiene team, and get them involved in it because they are an integral part of your office.
Yes.
And so it's really important to have them understand and play, so that then you're not stressing alone. And that way you can also bounce things off of their highly competent shoulders and say, hey, you know what? I don't know how to get this done. Maybe you have an idea or two that you can help me figure this out. How can we increase our hygiene case acceptance in this department? Or why is it that our patients don't want to come in for their perio maintenance when they should be coming every 3 or 4 months? If what is it us? Is it the education? Is it the training? Is it lack of financial options if the insurance covers them only twice a year? Is it what is it? What are the barriers? Unless and until we understand the barriers, neither we can educate the patient correctly, right? Because if it is an insurance barrier, then the way to overcome that would be to sit down and have a conversation with them and say, hey, you know what? This is maintenance, just like you go into your car, get your oil change for your car, or get your, grays covered with your hairdresser.
Yeah,
So
that's funny.
you have to, it's an investment in your body to maintain so that you can function with your own teeth till the end of your days. And I think understanding that, having that conversation, and it's best coming from the hygiene team, because they control, as you said, they are the best people to make best friends with new patients in 5 minutes, you know, and it doesn't come across as a sales pitch, because it really isn't.
Right.
But it also helps them to understand that it is a real need for the patient to understand that. And again, the hygienist cannot do that unless and until they know where the problem lies.
Well,
So,
and you bring up a really good point, because when I was writing my book, I temped in over 100 practices. And, here I'm writing my book, and I'm in there temping, and the doctor that I worked for, he didn't know I was temping, but I had to gather data outside of our practice and see what the pulse was in the industry as far as, hygiene. How are we doing as an industry? I mean,
mhm,
not just in our little community or our practice. No, how are we doing as an industry at different demographics, right? Practices that have older patients, younger patients, female doctor owners, male doctor owners, group doctor owners. I mean, it's like I had to see all of it.
right.
So I went out and I was a guest hygienist at all these practices, and I took mental notes out of all the beautiful things I was seeing, that these offices were like, oh my gosh, this dentist is such a great leader. He knows, or she, because there were both, they
Mhm,
know how to achieve greatness by elevating their staff. They invest in training with their staff. They even invited the guest hygienist to training. I mean, oh, you're probably going to come back
mhm,
and be with us, so let's go ahead and invite you to the next blah blah blah. I mean, that's next level. Like when you're
mhm,
thinking like that, right? That's a growth mindset. And
mhm.
so I saw that. But then I also saw, there's your operatory. The first setup's there. First patient, here's the chart. Let the assistant know if you need anything or can't find anything. Thank you so much for being here today. Right? And then they would leave. They didn't give me the perio protocol. I wasn't given the perio assessment protocol. I didn't know what the mission statement was for the practice, or what the hygiene department mission statement was. Even though I was a guest, I didn't know what the heartbeat of that practice was, what their why was. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're a guest hygienist or you're a guest assistant, a guest associate. You can do so much of a better job if you know what makes that practice tick and what's their why.
Mhm.
And so it's a simple one sheet. So I had a few practices give it to me, and I was floored. It had their mission statement for their practice. Most did not have actually none had a hygiene department mission statement. I came up with that one. And so it was the practice mission statement, it was their values, their why basically written out. their perio assessment protocol, their perio protocol, as far as, you see this, here's the flow chart. This is what our doctors love, right? Here's what we offer when we see this. Here's the adjunct therapy we offer to our patients. And then, I was given that and it was like, okay, this is great. And here's an example of how we chart our patients. And yes, we perio chart every time. I was like, oh, this practice is crushing it. This is great. So the practices that gave me that, I was like, yes, but most didn't. And so a lot of that information and that expertise in that experience, I should say, went into the book. So when I go in and I train with practices, the very first thing I do is I ask the team and all the providers, what are the problems you're seeing in your practice, in your demographic? Like, are you seeing rampant caries? Are you seeing what are the things you're seeing that you want fixed and that you're passionate about fixing? And so we go through all of this, right? And get it established what the need is and figure out together and write what the mission statement is for the hygiene department. And everybody does that. We present the perio protocol and perio assessment protocol that the doctor has written. And if they haven't written it, then we help them write it. And then we make sure everybody is calibrated, speaking the same language, and that they have training on how to deliver that information in handoffs, in special communication skills to the patient. Everybody gets trained on communication. And so it's powerful. And I think it's important for us to be face to face and not just do 100% virtual consulting. I've had a lot of my doctor friends say, I get more out of consultants when they come in and they don't just advise, but they actually execute. So I listen to a lot of my doctor friends on how I am building my business, I should say, and I know it works for practices. And so like next week, I'm traveling to onboard another practice. I'm showing up. I'm going in there and the doctor said, well, do you want to just start right now? And I said, let's wait till I meet the team. Again, it's about the connections and the relationships. And I want them to know that it's all safe with me. I'm just there to support them and I want them to succeed.
No, that's amazing.
That's it.
Yeah. No, I mean, dentistry is all about relationships, and it's really hard to connect via virtually and also to understand people. It's best to have them to see them in action, as they say.
Right.
So I love your approach of actually taking the time and the effort, because I know it's a little extra effort to
Yeah,
go into the practices and spend time with the team members, spend time with the doctors, because only then can you really get a pulse on the practice,
that's
is
true.
when you're in there holding hands and seeing with your own eyes what kind of transpires.
That's so
So that's so awesome that you take the time to do that, because not a whole lot of consultants do that. So that's amazing. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, I just listened to all my doctor friends and they said, if you're going to do this, this is how you got to do it because we can't stand it when, and then they give me their, so
Right.
I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I never do that, and
Right.
so, you just, making sure that you always, I want to make sure that I'm aligned with everyone and that we have the same values of integrity and being a servant leader and really making sure that, we say as we do and we do as we say and treat people with absolute, transparency and integrity and, all of that. It's just really important to be clear.
Yeah.
And when you have that communication, then it's good. Like everybody's going to be fine and no, there's no misunderstandings. And so I've always had such great relationships with my teams and I love that because I'm a
Yeah.
relationship person.
Hmm.
I invite them to, if I'm on webinars, if there's any type of free CEs, I'm pushing it out to people saying, show up, this will be fun, you'll learn this. And sometimes I speak on things that we're currently training on in their practice, and I'll think, okay, this is a good reinforcement, like for them to hear it And
Mm-hmm.
many people that are on the webinar are going to ask questions. And don't we always learn a lot from people
Yep.
asking their own questions, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
And
Absolutely.
it turns into a mastermind, and that's always fun too.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. How do you see dentistry evolving in the future? And what role do you think you're going to play in that evolution, Tiffany?
Well, I'll tell you something. There's been a lot of challenges since COVID, and we all talk about it. It's like there's shortages everywhere. But I think my doctors are doing a really good job of thinking outside the box so that way they can make sure they're serving their community, their patients. And, with this hygiene shortage, we've had to be very creative as far as, how we can best serve our patients and, of course, fulfill the needs of the practice and make sure our providers are taken care of because we want to make sure that they're physically and emotionally supported. And but we show them the way. We show them, hey, this is how we need to operate for us to afford things nowadays because
Mm-hmm.
the practice has to pay its bills. The
Yeah.
hygiene department must be profitable. And so I'm not excited that we're having this extra stressor. I know we're all in it together. And so I feel like as a community, if we just support one another, we're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I think hygiene training in itself is so necessary more than ever because
Mm-hmm.
in the past it was like, oh, you have all these hygienists and they're operating for a certain wage, and you know what, okay, maybe we're losing here, maybe our ROI on the hygiene department isn't exactly where we need it to be, but we're getting the diagnosis and this and that. Now doctors are paying more in salaries because of the supply and demand, and
Mm-hmm.
so now more than ever, our hygiene departments need to be run with efficiency, with amazing operations, with wonderful communication skills so we can close cases and tee it up for our doctors. There's more on the line in our hygiene departments to really make sure that they're run successfully because of the shortage, because doctors are paying more wages, because PPO plans are still paying the same as 20 something years ago. And so we've got to get into the weeds a little bit.
Yep.
So that way, in the end, our hygiene departments are absolutely crushing it, profitable, paying these salaries. Doctors are like, that's fine because I'm winning. The
Yeah.
hygiene department's winning, the practice is fine, but it all takes training. It all takes that nurturing. And so I am excited to the fact because I think that hygiene is going to be better nurtured for it. I think that these hygienists are going to get the training and all the support more than ever now than maybe they would have had in the past.
Right. Yeah, that is really exciting. Like I was telling somebody else earlier, before it was, I think dentistry was sustainable as a cart and pony show.
Right.
And now it's a chariot with a bunch of horses. And
Yep.
hygiene is a very important horse. And it's really more than ever now important for that horse to be trained well so they can lead that chariot, for success.
Right.
Otherwise, we're never going to win. They're always going to be playing catch up. And that can be exhausting for the provider, right? And so many providers are throwing in their towels right now because they just can't sustain. It's not sustainable. And it is really, really crucial, as like you said, for the hygienists and the hygiene departments to understand that this is not personal. It
Right.
is unfortunately the pressures from what is, for a lack of a better word, to say the market.
Mm-hmm.
And in the when the insurance company doesn't support you and your reimbursements are what they used to be 10 years ago, and your costs are going higher and higher, and wages are and should be higher. But what do you do?
Yeah.
How can you help your providers to hold on to their practices so you can have the wonderful jobs that you currently have especially with private practice? And
Mhm.
so that you can be in that position of power for your patients. And so it's so, so important because now more than ever for the hygiene teams to understand what a crucial role they're playing, that if they don't understand how important their own role within the practices, especially at this time, uh, they would they are creating a shift in
Mhm.
dentistry that is so huge, there may be no coming back from. And that is impacting not themselves, but dentistry as a profession as a
Right.
whole, and the patients that are cared for as a whole. So it's really, really important that hygienists and hygiene teams understand as a collective that this is not about you. It is about the profession. And it is about supporting this wonderful profession, which is going through some many, many changes, really. And being such a, this is the time to shine because the spotlight's on you, baby, as they say, you know. So I would say, you know, take the bull by the horns and tell if your provider is not as savvy, you know a little bit. Pull
Mhm.
them in and say, Doc, I want you to listen to this. I want you to hear what somebody like Tiffany has to say, who has done uh, her time both in hygiene and in practice management and can possibly help our practice, you know, become better. So I totally understand. And I think that's the bigger message is that don't shy away because from taking that responsibility, because this is the one time that you got all this you know, energy and spotlight and you have control. Don't throw it away.
Yeah.
Just say, I'm going to take the bull by the horns and I am going to help my providers because guess what? Otherwise, dentistry as we know it today may not be dentistry like this in 10 years.
Well, and our states are talking. They're giving our wonderful dental assistants expanded functions.
Mhm.
They are right now talking about the compact where hygienists can work in other states very easily. And because we have a duty. Again, I'm service person. I love to serve. We have a duty to our for our public, for public
Yeah.
health. And so, when I became a hygienist, it was that oath. You know, we,
Hmm.
we were there to serve our community. And so, yes, of course, as a single mother, I wanted to get paid so much money. Yes, I wanted to have my family taken care of. And yes, I had my own home bottom line where I was like, okay, these are my goals. But at the end of the day, I knew if I served my practice, I served my patients, my doctor was going to reward me
Hmm.
because he was the one that took all the risk. He was the one that got the loans. He was the one that went to the extra schooling. It wasn't me.
Hmm.
He was the one that had 15 staff member families to feed, not me. At the end of the day, I was in my little cocoon. I got paid every 2 weeks and I could go home. I turned it off, and that doctor had to worry about how to turn the lights on and off. If the compressor broke, oh my gosh, how are we going to get a loaner? Somebody just quit. What are we going to do now? All of these things. And so now more than ever, you said it, hygiene has the stage. So when I talk to doctors and they come to me and they say, oh my gosh, Tiffany, I don't even know how to handle this. And I said, don't worry about it. We're going to make that department profitable. And your hygiene team will carry you, just like my logo in the cover of my book. It's the hygienist lifting that practice up. And I love a paid by performance. I love it when my hygienists come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing so good. I made this in my bonus every 2 weeks," or doctor went ahead and took your advice and put in a profit sharing. And so that way, anytime the hygiene department wins, the provider wins, just like an associate dentist. And now more than ever, our hygienists can operate like an associate dentist.
Mhm.
And so there's that. And so I'll have some hygienists say, well, I'm afraid I just want to ask for the 65 an hour or 70 an hour. And I say, why don't you just sit back and have some faith? Because
Mhm.
I'll tell you something. You want to make 65, 70 an hour? That's nothing. That's nothing. How about get paid like an associate dentist?
Mhm.
And you know what? We work with our front office on all of the communication on how to keep those hygiene schedules full, how to make sure that they're scheduled very profitable, how to increase your hygiene service mix so that way we are combating PPO fee schedules. Second, first, delivering great care.
Right.
And so, I remember practicing and running into my doctor and saying, I found a new hygiene service we can do in the department. And he's like, okay, what else? What are we doing now? I'm going to go ahead and research it. And I say, I got something. I got something. And I called it the hygiene department, our tool belt.
Mhm.
The more tools we have in our belt, like you doctors, you've got crowns, onlays, inlays, implants, of course, your restorative fillings, you've got your, all on X's, you've got all of these sleep apnea, you've got ortho, your aligners, you've got all of these things. Well, how about we look at hygiene the same way and say, what are our hygiene service mix? What are we doing for our patients? What's the problems in our hygiene department that we need different hygiene services to help correct that? Like if we need to do laser therapy, if we need to do antibiotic therapy, what's going on in our department and what can we do to fight against that? What
Mhm.
can we do? What service can we bring in? And so, when I was practicing, that's what I did. I would listen to podcasts and hear about things, run to my doctor or call him at 5:30 in the morning. I was the crazy hygienist who did that. I'm like, Doc, I got an idea. What time are you going to be in there? And of course, he was in there, 6:30 every morning. And I say, hey, I found out about this thing. And here's all the research. And it wasn't, I dropped a name and let him research because he's the bottleneck. I did the research myself. I said, here it is. Tell me if you want to go ahead and bring that in. If you want us to include that in
Women.
our
Yeah.
hygiene service mix. And so he would research it and then he'd come back to me with questions or not, or he'd say, no, let's wait. Because he knows, I'm just getting touched with excitement over this new possibility, right? And so, but that's what it takes. And then what happens is your doctor puts you on a collaborative, like you're collaborating together. It's a conversation. And you know what? I don't know. It made me feel so important every time he asked me my opinion. And he didn't have to. I
Mhm.
wasn't signing anybody's paychecks.
Mhm.
But I showed that owner mindset. And then that brought me to the table of, oh, she cares enough to do this other research out here for the patients, for the practice, for the hygiene team, because I wanted the team to win.
Mhm.
And so, he listened to me. And so that was just a beautiful thing. And that's how it can be for hygienists out there. And
Yeah.
hygienists say, oh yeah, you just work for a great one. Well, you know what? I've worked for a lot of great ones. I worked for a few doctors that weren't there in leadership yet.
Mhm.
They just weren't, they're great people, but they just weren't great leaders yet.
Mhm.
And so I left. I mean, it just, we weren't aligned, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And so you've got to make sure you find your right fit. You find your final doctor. Like I would tell my doctor every day, you're the last one I'm working for. And I'm still working with him today. I mean, he bought another practice and I'm traveling to California to onboard that practice next week. And it's just wonderful to be able to have those opportunities and work with somebody who's such a great leader and who values hygiene, like
Mhm.
hygiene driven. I mean, that's the whole model. And it really does take a lot of pressure off the doctor when
It
you can
does.
lean on hygiene.
It really does. It really does. And that's the wonderful thing about what you're doing is hygienepreneur. It's in the name. You are empowering the hygienist to say, hey, you can have skin in the game too. So let's at least get up and play the game, you
Mhm.
know, at least try, because we as providers, we need your help.
Yeah.
We don't want to do this alone, and we're already practicing in isolation. If we can get support from our team members, from within our team, I mean, to me, I would consider that as a blessing. I
Oh,
would be like, oh, you know what? I have been delivered a blessing when somebody says to me, Doc, let me figure out a way to ease your burdens just a little bit.
right.
And which provider will not take that? I don't know. I think anybody would jump on it, because if you have a creative way, and as a hygienist, you can see a lot more into hygiene things, because we're already drowning on keeping on top of CEs with our own dental stuff, stuff, and then on top of that, stuff to run a business. That we're already drowning. That when you tell somebody, says, hey doc, I have an idea, but I want you to go figure it out, I'm like, well, can you help me figure it out, please? Because
Right.
that would be really, really awesome if that's one less thing for me to do. So I totally appreciate and applaud that mindset when the hygienist says, doc, you know what, I will figure this out for you, and then we can talk about it and tell me what you think. And I, as a provider, I would totally be in for it. So thank you for doing that, and for enabling hygienists to say that they can also be hygienepreneurs. They can be entrepreneurs within their business and be an asset, which would be, beyond compare, for not just the practice, but the patients, the community that it serves, because you're only doing good things and you're only making things better. And not only for the practice, and then yourself, because now you're growing yourself. And a lot of hygienists, as they get older, want to do other things. Well, now you've created a segue, because now
Exactly.
you can do other things, right?
It's so
So,
true. I have practices where the doctor has larger practice and he'll say, can you come and train my lead? And
mhm,
so we do that. We've got practices where I train the lead. And then, of course, I'm training the other team members too. But we have our special sessions, the lead and I. So
mhm,
that way I could put them into a position where they're learning how to be an effective communicator, how to really lead a team, because that's a whole other skill. And,
mhm,
how to get the best out of your team, how to support your team, how to talk to the different personality types on your team,
mhm.
right? And
Yeah,
how to be a mediator when times are a little like, oh gosh, we got to talk something out,
yeah,
how to be a good mediator and how to do all of that. And
yeah.
so, that in itself is a whole other thing. And so,
Mhm,
we are open to doing any type of support or training. I will let doctors know. It's kind of interesting. I'll go into a practice and just like at first just like say hello to everybody and meet them, and then of course they can see me in the flesh, I see them in the flesh, and then I see them operate, and then the doctor will say, hey, come in my office and talk to me. And so I'm like, okay. And so I'll say, you've got a unicorn in operatory too.
mhm,
I do. I'm like, yes. I'm all that hygienist in number two is awesome.
mhm,
Awesome. I knew that. They would say, I did know that. And I said, okay, well, what's going on there? And I don't know. I don't even know, how to manage a unicorn, how to elevate a unicorn.
mhm,
And so that's where I come in too. I'm like, you know what? I've been called a unicorn for years. I absolutely know how to nurture a unicorn because
Mhm,
I know how I was nurtured and what happened to me. And so
mhm,
of course that's what I'm going to do. And
mhm,
so we nurture everybody, but if there's somebody that is showing that they really want to grow with the practice in a certain way, and maybe they don't even see it for themselves yet, we
mhm,
will sit back and just go, what do you think about this?
mhm,
And then we open that door.
mhm.
And then, of course, in my little heart, I'm hoping that they'll step through it like I did many times.
Right.
And so generally they do.
Yep.
Generally, they're like, oh, I didn't even know that was an option.
Hmm.
So but we also promote communication between doctor and the hygiene team. We want to make sure that those conversations are happening every single month consistently. And because when we have those important conversations, then miscommunication is less, and everybody feels more connected. We've got team bonding happening. I love it when teams will go outside of the practice and play. I think
Mhm.
that's important in for culture. And so I'll give doctors ideas on different things that they can do with their teams that, I say, okay, well, what's your budget? Because everybody's budget is different. We don't have to go crazy.
Right.
I mean, it's just that, or having little appreciation boards in the practice, in
Mhm,
the break room, where team members can put up little notes about their team members and really elevating them, and kind of doing a contest around that is always fun, like a
mhm,
giveaway or something. And
mhm.
it's just, my doctor I worked for, this is totally off subject, but he had us do March Madness every year. Okay, so here we are with the brackets, right? And we would have to pick it, and then we would give him our sheets, and then he would give the prize for the winner. And so that in itself, inside the like we didn't even
Mhm,
go outside the practice, but that was team bonding because we were like, oh, who's in first? And he would announce, he'd walk by and say, oh, because I always took second place for some reason. And
mhm.
and he'd say, well, Tiffany, you're losing this because of this. I'm like, and then, and then and it was crazy because the patients knew every year we were doing this.
Uh-huh.
And so it was a thing. We did it for years and years and years. And that's just one example of it's a game. And
Mhm,
printing out the brackets or choosing the who's going to win the World Series and doing
mhm.
like a fishbowl or so. I mean, just little things like that make coming to work really fun. And um, yeah, team bonding is where it's at. It's just so great. You've got to take care of your team members, right? We see
Yeah,
them more than our families. So
that
it's
is so true.
yeah.
It is so important. Well, in your opinion, what are the key challenges in the dental industry today? And how do you believe, I think we've touched upon a few of them, that your business can help solve some of these issues?
Well, I think one of the key challenges is our doctor owners are so busy to start one more thing.
Hmm.
And I see that. I talk to doctors or call me and just say, Tiff, I have a question for you. And I'm not like they're not a client of mine yet or anything like that, but they're in my community. And so they'll say, Tiff, I got a question for you. I'm like, okay, what's up? And then I'll answer the question, and they'll say, I know we need training in here. We need training in here. I got to get you in here. I'm getting ready to onboard one more hygienist, and it's like it's never the right time. Like the
Hmm.
doctors don't have time. And then they go, well, I know I need training. I know even front office, like I know
Hmm.
my front office needs extra courses, but I don't even have time to look up what courses would benefit her or him. And so I figured I really feel the biggest challenge right now is lack of time. And our doctors have lack of time. And then the other challenges, staffing shortages. I
Hmm.
mean, obviously, I mean, everybody talks about that. But the way that my company, the Hygienepreneur, can help with that is that we take it off the doctor's plate.
Hmm.
All they have to do is just say, yeah, let's do this. And we're the ones that help alleviate the bottleneck syndrome, right? So
Mhm,
we get in and execute, we integrate. If I have a front office person that says, I don't have the script, or I don't have the verbiage, or I don't have the know-how for this, this, and this, I'm on the internet and phone researching it for them.
mhm, mhm,
I mean, just last week, I had my front office person. Now, this is a practice. I'm managing the whole practice.
mhm,
But I had one of my team members call me and she goes, Tiffany, we have this new subscription. I'm supposed to load all of our consent forms and our post-op in here, and I don't even have time to do it. Well, I not only wrote them all, but I loaded them all for her too,
oh my gosh.
because I knew that if I didn't do that and help her, then here we are paying for this subscription again, and we're not using it.
Mm,
So I just, you know what, I carved out time in my schedule for my client and said,
mhm,
I'm going to do this because it's going to help my team member who's in the front and shorthanded. It's going to help my doctor see that we've executed something and
mhm,
they're paying for the subscription. And guess what? We're going to use it and run with it and do great things. But, that's the thing. It's not just being a consultant, it's being an integrator and an executor, not just giving advice and
yeah,
leaving. It's going in and seeing that there's accountability and that these things have been handled, that we've got operations written, but they're actually being executed.
right. No,
So
that's really, really
I
important.
it's so important. And I saw that, when I was in practice management, that was an issue for doctors, getting things, delivered. And
Mhm,
then even in hygiene, like, getting the doctor out of the bottleneck syndrome and putting it on someone else to execute that operation. But we have no problem. Like, I roll up my sleeves and I get it done. And I'll tell them, would you like me to do that for you? And they go,
mhm,
yes, thank you. I get it.
yeah,
There's a staffing shortage. And so, I've even been asked, hey, we want to execute a certain type of like financial company or something. And I'll say, okay. And they say, can you research both of these? Yes. So I get on Zoom and I do a demo with both companies and I write up the difference between the both of them. I send it to the doctor in the front office and then they look at it and choose which one they want.
that's awesome. That's so amazing. That's so amazing that you do that, Tiffany, because
Yeah.
that really is going the extra mile
Yes.
for the dentists and their teams. And that is such a blessing because, like you said, it's easy to give advice, but it's very hard to act upon that advice. And sometimes, understanding that there are bottlenecks to inaction and saying, okay, I'm going to find out what the bottlenecks to inaction are, whether it is you don't have enough team support and your team member that you have delegated to is drowning and already and says, look, one more thing, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Right. And then you actually go in and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to support you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you get over this hump so that you can utilize or start something new in the practice. And that is really, really key. And that is, I think, I'm sure most people love, appreciate, and adore you for doing that because that is going the extra mile and helping and not just giving a helping mouth but a helping hand.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
our doctors spend a lot of money on extra education. They go to implant classes, they go to sleep apnea, they go to clear aligner, they go to all these things, right? To increase services for their practice when they think when they think they're ready, they do this.
mhm,
And so it doesn't happen unless we have the administrative side behind it. And so, we have to go in and make sure hygiene team is trained with all the products, the tools, the equipment, what's involved with these new procedures. And so, we help with the execution of that too. So that way our hygiene teams can be looking for this type of dentistry. Your doctor just went and did this education. Of course, the doctor
Right.
would love those cases. And so we help with the training with that. The other thing is if there's anything that we're seeing, because we've been doing this a while. So if we see that, hey, we need to have some type of like our post-op. Why are
Mm-hmm.
we doing laser therapy? We don't have a post-op, or we don't have a brochure for that, or we help with that. And so, we notice it and we sit down and go, okay, how can we execute this? And so we can get this new procedure
Mm-hmm.
active in the practice. Get
That's
the fee
amazing.
and the fee schedule, right? Even down to that, like we just integrated in one practice, laser. And so I went in with the front office and I said, okay, we're going to sit on and we're going to get all the laser codes in. Let's get the fees in there. Let's get the consent form, all the post-ops for everything. Let's get the hygienist her training and make sure she understands the practice management side of how to deliver that information to the patient. So we went through all of the practice management side of it, how to present that case to the patient, utilizing risk factors. So then we say, okay, let's see the hygienist do
Mm-hmm.
it. Go hygienist, go execute your new procedure.
Yeah.
And so, it's just a beautiful thing. And then before you know it, we're tracking that. We're tracking that new procedure, because if my doctor buys a laser, I want to make sure I let that doctor know when that laser is paid off by that hygienist production. And the sooner the better, because I've had too many doctors say, "Oh yeah, I buy that. They don't use it, sits in the cupboard." Well, not on my watch. We make sure that if doctor invests in a piece of equipment, hygienists are trained, they feel good with it, they're using it, we track it, we let the hygienist know, hey, good job, it's paid
Mm-hmm.
for. Guess what? I can go to doctor and ask for a second one,
Mm-hmm.
because we
That's
all want,
awesome.
we
Yeah.
don't want to leave our ops, right? So
Yeah.
but we've got to justify the cost in buying it. And so that's the way we can do it. And it's just been really effective. I've had very positive reactions with hygienists. They've been really open to this new movement in leadership and empowerment. And I think they're really liking the respect that they're given, and that they give their doctors, because
Mm-hmm.
it is a team approach here. But we have to have respect for our doctor owners, and just have some empathy on what they went through to get there. And that's why, I'm so passionate with helping these doctors and these practices grow, because I know in the end, it's just going to benefit everybody for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. This was so
Welcome.
amazing. So if anybody wants to reach out to you and avail of your greatness, how do they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, thehygienepreneur.com. My email is Tiffany at thehygienepreneur.com. And then, of course, I'm on all the socials. So, you can hit me up on Instagram. And then, of course, we would love to put the link for the download of my book, the PDF version. We would love to give that as a gift to your listeners and your viewers. And yeah, I would love to support anybody in the community in any way. It's my mission. It's my mission to serve. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast today. This is so exciting for me. I appreciate you.
Oh, no, thank you for taking the time and actually having this conversation with me today, because it's been eye-opening for us both. We're both with the same mission and same, uh, you know, uh, I think, path. We're both on the same path, just approaching it from different angles. And so I really, really appreciate you taking the extra mile and pushing the dentists and their teams to look at their hygiene department as with a collaborative eye, and not an eye of frustration,
Right.
where they're just like, oh, what am I going to do? But instead, you have said, what can you do?
Yes.
And that is answering sometimes the right question, is really helpful. And you have brought that to the forefront and said, you know what, you can do. this, and this, and we can help you. So just you're changing the narrative. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Tiffany.
You're welcome. It's all about changing your mindset and investing in your team and, not operating with fear. As great leaders, we push forward and, lead with confidence and, know that when we treat people right and that we're nurturing them, they're going to stay. So it's like also attract and retain team members. When you train them and you invest in them, they're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to go somewhere else for $5 more an hour. And we get in there and we set it up for that practice to win, for the provider to win, and all of that. It's just that triple winning scenario is really amazing. That's for sure.
That it is. Well, thank you so much again,
You-
Tiffany, the
That's right.
hygienepreneur, for spending your afternoon with me.
You're welcome. Thank you, Aditi, so much. I appreciate you and your community. Thank you.
Thanks.